So, let's begin with a little tale called Everything I Know I Learned from the Easter Bunny.
Oh dear.
Walk softly and carry a big carrot. Everyone needs a friend who is all ears. All work and no play can make you a basket case. Everyone's entitled to a bad hair day. Some body parts should be floppy. Let happy thoughts multiply like rabbits. And the best things in life are still sweet. So sweet it is this day on this Easter morning. And I wish you could see what I see up here. It looks like a beautiful bouquet of loving souls today. And how fun with the bonnets and the Easter dress up. I was remembering that this week. Did anyone get to practice your Easter rituals this week? Yeah, or maybe you had some memories of them, fond memories.
The hat.
The hat, it's the hat, yeah. So I was thinking about Easters as a child and what it involved, because there were 5 kids and getting everyone dressed to make all things new for the day was quite an undertaking. And, you know, I was the kind of kid who liked to play outside in the mud, so me getting dressed up for Easter and I can remember the dress was always itchy. I don't know why. And the hat and the gloves and the shoes and, oh boy, that was a miracle transformation in itself. But we had these comforting rituals, you know, dyeing the Easter eggs with the vinegar water and how it smelled. And anybody do that? Need to dye the egg? Wow, a lot of you. Okay, good. And, you know, Easter has its own palette of colors, you know, the pale pinks and greens and blues, and which coincidentally are the same colors for clothes as newborn babies. New life. So Easter Sunday was a transformative time for my family too, because it was one of the rare times my mom joined us for church. And it gave me comfort. And she was one of the CEOs of the church. Christmas and Easter only. So with all of the finery, the egg hunts, the candy-filled baskets, the warmth of the season, church family, my family together, there was an expectation of treasure, looking for treasure and expecting to find it. So over 2,000 years ago, a man named Jesus took a journey of transformation, a journey that changed the world, and left behind buried treasure in the hearts of humanity. So today, let us rejoice in the rediscovery of the spiritual treasure in our own hearts as we hear the Easter story, celebrate the life of Jesus, and enjoy and resonate with the victory of the risen Christ within. So the Gospels tell the story of Jesus' last week, which include the Passover supper, the next day the arrest, trial, crucifixion, burial, and resurrection. So we're going to return to the story, to the scene on that Easter morning when it was first discovered what was happening. So we're beginning with the reading from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 16, verses 1 through 8. And this is right after the crucifixion of Jesus. We read, "When the Sabbath was over, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so that they might go anoint him. And very early on the first day of the week, when the sun had risen, they went to the tomb. They had been saying to one another, 'Who will roll away the stone?' from the entrance to the tomb. But when they got there, when they looked up, they saw the stone, which was very large, had been rolled back. And they entered the tomb and saw an angel dressed in a white robe, sitting on the right side, and they were alarmed. But he said to them, "Do not be alarmed. You are looking for Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has been raised. He is not here." So imagine their surprise. Where could Jesus be? After the visit to the tomb, the others left, but Mary Magdalene stayed. And we read in the Gospel of John, chapter 20, verse 11, that Mary stood outside the tomb crying. And as she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw two angels in white, seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said. "I don't know where they put him." She's thinking the worst, that someone has stolen his body. But at this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize it was Jesus. And he said, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it you're looking for?" Now there's a little dramatic irony here, because he knows quite well who she's looking for. We know as readers, but she doesn't know. Thinking it was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." And then Jesus speaks her name, Mary. And she turns toward him and cries out in Aramaic, the word for teacher. And Jesus said, "Do not hold on to me, for I have not yet returned to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am returning to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God." Mary then left to tell the disciples the good news. So Jesus returns and he appears to those he loves. He goes to those he loves. So that very first Easter tells us that life is eternal and love never dies. And perhaps you've had this experience yourself with a loved one who's passed on, that they appear in your dreams, or through a song, or through some special symbol that reminds you of them. After my mother passed, I remember looking out at my neighbor's apple tree, and the way the sunlight dappled on the leaves with shadow and leaf, my mother's face was visible in the tree. And we had that moment, several moments. And then I closed my eyes and looked again, it was gone. Life is eternal, and love never dies. So it was Joseph of Arimathea who had generously provided the tomb for Jesus. And afterwards, someone said to him, "That was such a beautiful, valuable, costly, hand-hewn tomb. Why did you give it to someone else to be placed in?" And Joseph said, "Well, he only needed it for the weekend." At Christmas time, we're reminded that Christmas is every day we allow that Christ within to be born anew in our hearts. So Easter can be every day we transcend our problems, our doubts, our fears, our worries, and trust, even though we don't know how things are going to work out. Every day we trust living in the mystery of this human divine journey that we're all on. We want to have it all figured out, but it's a mystery. God is a mystery. Life is a mystery, and we are part of that divine mystery. Easter can be every day that we surrender to knowing, to being who we came here to be, and transcending those crucifixions and those little deaths that happen. Trusting in the promise of resurrection. For resurrection always follows a crucifixion. So what does Easter mean for you? Perhaps it's freedom from past mistakes, or freedom to do and be what your heart desires, but maybe you buried perhaps out of fear or doubt or discouragement. Perhaps Easter can mean freedom from judgment, old resentments, confusion, or pain that have held you in bondage. Perhaps it can mean letting go of all of the trials around the pandemic experience and rising into renewed hope and liveliness and creativity and having that freedom to rise. You may have heard about the story of the 11-year-old boy from Ukraine who traveled 600 miles alone with only a backpack, a bag, and a phone number on his hand. Have any of you seen that story? And his mother, wanting to keep her son safe from the war's encroachment in their area in Ukraine, put her son on a train and sent him from southeast Ukraine to Slovakia, another country, to stay with relatives in safety. And he's now reunited with his mother and his family. His name is Hassan. So how many of us have felt like that young boy, walking alone in the dark sometimes in a foreign land these last 2 years? Through what at times may have felt like escaping a war zone, or one battle after another. And yet, you had the ability to not only make it through the other side, but to show up, to bless others with a kindness, a smile, a caring action, a connection, and a resurrected strength. In the Easter story, some celebrate the resurrection as a one-time event 2,000 years ago. But in Unity, we see resurrection as a daily process that keeps us attuned to infinite possibilities that dwell behind each obstacle. So what can this Easter mean for you? The disciples saw Jesus' resurrection as a miracle. So we'll return to that Easter day story for a minute. And it's the afternoon of Easter, and two followers of Jesus were walking the 7 miles from Jerusalem to Emmaus, the village of Emmaus. And they were discussing the crucifixion and all that had happened when the risen Christ draws near. But they don't recognize him. And you wonder why? Why didn't they recognize? And they recognized it was the appearance of the risen Christ so different from the Jesus that they had known. Or perhaps they did not recognize him because they were not looking for him. They did not expect to see him. And isn't this often our experience, that we see what we are looking for? If we look for beauty, we usually find beauty. If we look for rejection, hostility, greed, we're able to find that too. If we look for love and kindness and friendship and generosity, we find those too. So what are you looking for today? What are you expecting to see today? So it's not until the disciples are having their evening meal with this stranger and he blesses the bread that we read. Then their eyes were opened and they recognized him. So the presence of the living Christ is in this very room, and I invite you to look around with eyes that are willing to see it, to see the Christ in this room. We are resurrecting the light in our hearts. And if some of you are still going through, feel like you're still in that tomb, waiting for a resurrection, have heart, because your tomb time is almost over. Can I get an amen? Yes. So today and these days after Easter, may we look for the Christ as we read the news, or listen for it as we listen to the radio, and to listen for evidence of the Christ, that love, that hope, that kindness in our midst, especially where we don't expect it. The prayer of St. Teresa reminds us, the face of Christ is all I see. The voice of Christ is all I hear. There is no journey but to walk with thee. Jesus declared, I am the resurrection and the life. His message was plain. You are eternal beings. You are children of God, created from love to be loved. What I can do, you can do. Raise your consciousness up. Raise your awareness up. He reminded us that the best is yet to be. And his intention was to show us the way to become the greatness of God's love made visible, that we were created to be. So let us count our blessings this day. We have the beautiful senior center and this room, which is, I feel like we've stepped into a whole new era being in this room, right? So we give thanks for the senior center. We give thanks for every person here and everyone who is part of our community, past, present, and future. We give thanks for all of the love and connections with our church family, our friends, our family, our community, the beauty of nature, and so much more. We are so blessed, so blessed. And so let us conclude by savoring the spiritual sweetness with a responsive reading. And I will read the leader part, and you get the pink part, the response. The resurrecting Spirit of the Christ within me fills my mind with wisdom and understanding.
I am illumined and my way is made clear. My success is assured.
The resurrecting Spirit of the Christ within me quickens the healing life activity in every part of my being.
I am whole, strong, and free, as God created me to be. I rejoice in my healing.
The resurrecting Spirit of the Christ within me increases my awareness of infinite substance to meet my every need.
I am rich and prospered, and abundance of God's good fills my life and affairs.
The resurrecting Spirit of the Christ within me fills my whole being with love.
I am loving and I am loved. I express love freely and fully.
And so it is. Thank you, God.
Thank you, God.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen.